What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with 150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, enjoying the last week of your vacation. Back to work as soon as Sunday, Legs. How you doing?
Back to the grind. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm obviously still trying to capitalize on the time at home and seeing my family as much as I can before this season starts. And yes, you're right. I have a preseason game, my first game with my new broadcast team I'm working with, Mike Breen and Richard Jefferson. We are calling our first preseason game next Sunday. So it's here, man. It's officially here. We got, some teams have already started camp because they've got preseason games overseas. Some teams are having media days here in the next couple days, training camp starting, and it's going to come fast and furious now.
Yeah. What's the scouting report on Legler from the offseason? Are you coming into the year in the best shape of your life? Have you worked on your game?
There's no question, man. You're going to see the absolute best version of Legs this year. That's my goal. And I feel I'm refreshed. I'm energized. Absolutely ready to attack this season, man. I think we've got some of the best storylines in terms of the number of teams that I'm interested in headed into the year, maybe more than ever. It's a more comprehensive list than ever, I think, for me.
Well, one team that's very interesting for some of the wrong reasons now, they were the most interesting team all offseason, but just got hit with some adversity, is the Houston Rockets, who lost Fred VanVleet for the entirety of the season with a torn ACL. That happened in a team or a player organized pre-camp workout. Team gets together and he suffers a really terrible injury that is going to remove him from the team. So Legs, the Rockets were the story of the offseason. They get Kevin Durant. They make a big move. They go all in. Fred VanVleet is obviously a huge part of that, both for on the court, what he provides from the point guard position, but also just as this veteran presence and vocal leader. And they lose him. So before we get into anything else, what is this loss signal for you? Is it catastrophic? Is it, hey, maybe they can overcome it? What were you thinking when you saw that?
I think it's a major blow. I don't know, catastrophic. Look, they still have a team that was as interesting as any in the offseason. And everybody knows that, and what they did to kind of cement themselves as a legitimate contender. Because last year they won a lot of games. They were ranked in the top 4 in the West all year, pretty much. I don't know that anybody really bought in to them being a contender last year, despite the regular season success. They were one of the great stories in the league without question. But they weren't that. Then you make these moves they made in the offseason, obviously Durant being the top of the list, but there's other moves they've made to just solidify their depth, and where you're going, man, they're all in to win it this year, and they're on the short list of teams that could do it. And now I think for me, will I rule it out? No, because you don't know what they're going to do next. But this, to me, if they did, let's just say they didn't do anything. Let's say they were incapable of doing anything, and they just had to go the whole year without Fred VanVleet. It would be a major blow to their ability to run the table in the Western Conference and win a championship, in my opinion, because you're talking about a guy that's going to be the table setter. He's also got a ton of big game playoff experience. And that for me was as big as anything about Fred VanVleet. He is not going to be fazed by pressure moments. He was on a championship team, a major contributor. They probably don't win it without Fred VanVleet that year in Toronto. So for me, losing that, if that's taken off your roster for a playoff run, that's a significant blow. Now the question is, what do they do to replace that? How close can they come to replacing that? What's it going to cost them to do it? That remains to be seen. But just right now, Adam, on the surface, yeah, man, it's a big loss. Like, you're looking at a guy that averaged 14 points a game. You're going, okay, it's Fred VanVleet. He's a really good player. they could overcome that. I think it's more significant than that because of the way he plays, his leadership, his toughness, his big game ability. I think all of that stuff is definitely a major problem now for Houston as they try to figure out what they're going to do about this.
And for me, because I like that you brought up some of the culture stuff and leadership stuff. Let's put that to a side for a second. I do want to get to it. But the first part of this is for all of the talent that they have on the roster, and they have a lot of talent, the point guard position was a bit of a question mark because you had Fred VanVleet and then Reed Sheppard behind him. And, he needs to make a big leap even to be the backup. But now he gets elevated to where there is no, anybody in front of him. They have Aaron Holiday, a more veteran player. But now Reed Sheppard steps into that. So the first thing I look at is I love Amen Thompson. Everybody knows one of my favorite young players in the league. So I'm very high on him, and I'm high on his ability to handle and pass. But to me, he's more of a secondary guy. If you try to move him into that role and say, okay, he's going to initiate our offense, I think you're putting him in a position that is not getting the most out of him. So now the question becomes, for as talented as the roster is, they don't have a point guard that is proven to be able to handle the type of complexity that this team's going to present to them.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot in that regard for this reason. So you mentioned some guys. Aaron Holiday, solid player, veteran player, pro. He's a backup guard. He's a backup guard in this league, and he's a valuable backup guard, but that's what he is. Reed Sheppard is an interesting player because he was third pick in the draft, I believe. Third pick in the draft a year ago. I'm not mistaken. Okay, so and it was interesting because I only did one Rockets game last year, and it was later in the year, and I remember sitting down with with their organization, and it was interesting because he had been at that point, Reed Sheppard. Guys pick that high that aren't kind of in your rotation. You kind of go, oh, what's going on? Because at that point, he had even gone to the G League, and I think he had 49 points in a G League game, something like that. And they were like, okay. And I remember the line was, you know what it is, man? He's not good enough right now for us to be in the rotation, but he's way too good for the G League. So he's in this weird in-between place. But here's what was interesting, Adam, about the conversations I was having was they clearly were really high on him. You could just tell when you talk to a team and they've got a lottery pick that maybe is not in the rotation, whether it's a rookie, second year, third year player, right? And that name comes up, you can tell by the body language and energy of the people answering the questions how they feel about this player. And it was obvious to me that they really like Reed Sheppard's upside. Having said that, they were going to carve out a bigger role for him this year. I believe going into the year, he's going to be your backup. 12, 15 minutes a game. I think that's the plan going in. They think eventually this guy can be a starting point guard in this league. That's not going to happen now. He's not ready for that now, I don't believe. So that's a tough break for the Rockets. If this was 2 years from now, Reed Sheppard takes over. Boom, here we go. He's probably ready. He's not ready right now. Then the other guy's Amen Thompson. And is Amen Thompson going to be able to make that transition on the fly like that? He handles the ball a lot. He takes it off the glass defensively as a wing a lot, brings it up the floor. He's a very good passer, very good playmaker, puts pressure on teams with his dribble. You're talking about something totally different when it comes to just running a team and managing an offense and directing traffic and the way your mind processes it. It's a different type of aggressiveness. So I don't know that that's the answer either. So I think that's your point. They don't have in-house right now a solution to this problem. I think of the three I just laid out, Holiday, Sheppard, or Thompson, it would be convert Amen Thompson to that spot for X number of minutes a game right now, because I think that's a very intriguing thing for me. The one thing about him, though, if you're going to run a lot of primary ball screen with your lead guard, as he would, Adam, he doesn't shoot the ball well enough to be played honestly.
Yeah.
So what does that do to your offense? You know what I mean? It's different when you're off the ball and the ball is swung to you, and now you can go attack a gap, attack a closeout defender. He's so good at that. Handling the ball up the floor, running a ball screen when you're not a threat to shoot a three is a totally different way you're going to be defended. And what does that do to bog down their offense? So I don't know that he's ready now, but I think of the three options, it's okay. Do you want Sheppard in there more, or do you want Amen Thompson to handle the ball a little bit more and play more like a pseudo point guard position? That's really what we're left with.
And maybe a little point guard less. I mean, you're not doing the traditional point guarding thing, running high pick and rolls and, initiating through that, because you do have Kevin Durant, who you can play through isolation, run him off some stuff, get him to his spots, and then let him play. And then, of course, you have Alperen Şengün, who's coming off of his great Euro basket. uh, obviously a player with an enormous amount of upside and is starting to show it more and more. Those two guys can be your fulcrums, so you don't necessarily need all of that. I'm with you here. I want to stay with Reed Sheppard, and then I want to go to Amen Thompson at point. Reed Sheppard, even if you buy that he is ready for this leap because he's a great player, not exactly a traditional point guard. He's like a scoring guy, can come off the screens and things. So even that, one of my questions I have for both of these guys, Amen Thompson and Reed Sheppard, is you're asking them to develop, but also to change their natural play style if you put him there. Yeah. So if Reed Sheppard has to play point guard, are you having him be Reed Sheppard? Or is it, hey, but we need you to start focusing a little bit more on the point guard portion of this? To me, that's where this gets tough.
I think Reed Sheppard has a lot of that in him, honestly. I think Reed Sheppard eventually is going to make that transition to where he's a dual threat point guard in this league. I think his shooting ability now is going to stand out a lot. Yeah. He's also very good on the ball defender. So he can hold his own on that end of the floor. He's got great lateral quickness. He's tough. He's wiry, strong. Like, he likes to compete defensively, and he's primarily a really good mid-range pull-up jump shooter because he's got great elevation on his mid-range shot, and he can be a deep shooter. The other stuff, the playmaking in traffic, the turning the corner on ball screen, putting pressure on defenses, making the right find. He's a little bit smaller, like, to do that kind of stuff. That, I think, is where his most growth will have to come from. I think eventually he can get there. He's not ready now, year two, to assume that. Now, to your point, you make a good point though in this regard. Do you really need that, quintessential like lead guard, like a guy like Fred VanVleet, and look, remember, he was playing in Toronto with Kyle Lowry. So they kind of shared it, right? Kind of two smaller-ish type guards. They played some 1, some 2. They spot up and shot it. They both guarded. But it was like almost like, pick one, six one, half dozen the other. Like, who's your point guard? I look at a team like Boston, and Drew Holiday and Derek White. Like, neither one of those guys is really a traditional lead guard. They're just they're good players. Most of their offense initiation, even whether it's ISO or ball screen, came from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They're forwards. And then the two guards could handle the ball. Both excellent defenders, which made them more valuable for them. But then they were more like Drew was more of a weak side cutter type post up guard, and Derek White became really an excellent spot up shooter or a shooter shooting a 3 off ball screen. But the offense was run through the other two guys, Tatum and Brown. So maybe Houston, with Şengün's ability to initiate, with Kevin Durant's ability to initiate, we talked about Amen Thompson and like his ability to initiate in a different way than those guys. Maybe that's enough. And you rely more on this guard spot now as a guy that can spot up, space the floor, and knock down shots at a high rate, in which case Reed Sheppard and Holiday can both maybe be answers for that. And you run your offense a little bit differently with the other guys being the primary ball handlers and decision makers than, a guy like VanVleet who would have had the ball a lot.
Right. I see some people in the comments here. Meech has one that says, Amen is a natural point guard. He's played point guard his entire life. He will be fine. Here's where I just push back on this in one way. I love Amen Thompson. I love his vision, his playmaking, and all of his, all of the skills that you're talking about in terms of being a point guard. But it's different when you are the lead point guard as opposed to, especially at the NBA level, because there's different considerations. And even if you buy that he has the talent to be that, he's really effective in the role that he has been in. If you ask him to now put more emphasis on, I just need to read the team and what's needed and get the ball where it's going, and has this guy got shots and where's the matchup, inevitably it costs something else. And he's so good at the things that he's doing that even if he can pull that off, it does pull him away from some of the other things that he's great at and what they've gotten used to. And that's why I think, regardless of whether you agree with Meech or not, it still comes at a cost. I will say, though, Kevin Durant, Alperen Şengün, late game offense. This is why you brought Kevin Durant in. You can give him the ball late and let him do things. Amen Thompson, just unbelievable defender. Kevin Durant has all that length. There is a chance you could try to play a little more defensive minded to close games and count on Kevin Durant to be able to carry you home and Şengün to carry you home. And that's where this could work, where, okay, we don't have a traditional scoring point guard. Maybe it's not Reed Sheppard. Maybe they go somewhere else. You can throw out a backcourt defensively that says you're going to have a hard time getting into your offense, and we're going to trust Kevin Durant to be able to make shots in the clutch over contested defense.
Well, look, I think that was a lot of their identity a year ago, was on the defensive end of the floor. That's what Ime Udoka changed about this team, their toughness mentality. And they lost Dylan Brooks. That was a big part of that. But I do think that still is going to be the primary focus for them. And then you bring in a guy now that's a late game closer offensively. They didn't really have that. They didn't know where to go with the ball. I mean, Şengün is a really good player. To just think you're going to just operate through Alperen Şengün at the end of games and that's going to be good enough, or like last year was Jalen Green,
Right.
very inconsistent decision maker, inconsistent shooter. They didn't have that ultimate answer for any defense. They do now with Durant. So I think the primary focus is still defensively. Now you've addressed this closing type player, this go-to offensive answer for any scenario. They didn't have it. They do now. So now it's just, how do they all play together offensively? And to what extent is Kevin Durant going to dominate the ball? I said, I don't know, a month ago, if Durant averages like 28 again, like he does pretty much every year, I don't know if that's the best thing for the Rockets. I don't know that that'll be the best thing. Maybe this is a year when Kevin Durant averages like 23, 24. He's always going to be efficient. The guy shot over 50% from the field like 11 straight years or something. It's ridiculous. He's going to do that again, no matter if he cuts 4 or 5 shots out of his field goal attempts or not. He's going to shoot 50% from the field. It's almost guaranteed. So if he's going to be efficient, maybe the threat that he represents and the way it opens up things for the rest of the roster and allows Şengün to continue to grow, that might be the best way for this team to operate offensively.
I even think with Fred VanVleet out, he's another guy that gives you 3-point shooting, 3-point spacing, and they still have guys that they can rely on for shooting from the perimeter. But every team needs as much as they can get, and that's one less guy. And now you look at their second unit, some of their staggers, and you say they're an injury here or there away from all of a sudden being down to 3 shooters that you got to fill an 8-man rotation with that little. So the depth part of it now becomes a question, and those things will be a challenge. But here's what I really think, Legs, because I think the Rockets are still good, but they are clearly, you don't trade for Kevin Durant at this age and say, we'll use this year to develop. You have to maximize every year of Kevin Durant until the wheels fall off. So I think they have to look at this and say, we have to pivot. They have a bunch of guys who are eligible to be traded on December 15th because they signed deals, including Fred VanVleet, who has a player option next year at $25 million. And they have 7 first-round picks that they can trade away. I look at that and say, I would bet money that they are going to get to December or January or maybe even as late as February and look around and say, if we made a big splash, we can be right back up into that tier 1 contention or right below it to where we give ourselves a legitimate shot. So now, what do you think of that? The idea that some team would take on Fred VanVleet plus 3 picks or 4 picks or 2 picks, whatever it is, depending on the caliber of player, and say, we will absorb that contract, that dead contract, to allow you to stay in that tier 1.
Totally agree with you. And it's going to get back to what you said to start this whole thing. It's all in to win every year now. This year, if they don't win a title this year, it's a lost year. Yep. That's where they're at. That's where they position themselves. And we didn't think about them a year ago like that. They had some vets on the team, but we really looked at their young guys, the Jalen Greens and the Amen Thompsons of the world, right? Jabari Smith and Tari Easton. Like, these were the guys we were looking at and say, man, what Ime Udoka's done, the culture's there now. The identity's there. They're tough. Now it's okay. Let's watch this group kind of season themselves, and eventually here in a few years, they'll be in the mix to contend. And then they traded for Kevin Durant. You go, well, they got to win this year. Right. That's kind of what happens, man, when you add a guy like Kevin Durant. So because of that, you're right. And I do think that's obviously something they're going to explore. And I think, look, you can beat yourself up trying to think about it now. You know how this is. The landscape of the league looks totally different in January. Who's gotten hurt? What teams have underachieved? Who's completely changed what they're trying to get out of the season from a team standpoint because of whatever reason. So that'll play itself out, and then these you'll then narrow it down to a handful of teams, a few guys that they could potentially target, and we could throw names out now, but I think the list will be really, more certain when you get probably after the first of the year and you start to look at where they're at, who could potentially be available, because there'll be a couple names added to the list that aren't going to be there now if we created one. And that's what's going to happen. And I do agree with you. I think they're going to do it because they need to try to win now. You've got a couple of years with Durant, and that's why you got him. And you've got to try to max out and cash in while you have him on your roster. So here we go.
He is 36 years old. And to your point, if you're a Rockets fan, especially this is hard almost for rebuilding franchises, but even for fan bases to wrap your head around, because everything's kind of linear. We're getting some young guys and we're developing them. The moment you get a Kevin Durant, it's like, hey, every year now is equal. This next year is not better or worse than this one. It's just a title open window, and you have to maximize it. And that's why I think it'll happen. I'll throw one name out. We were kind of spitballing potential guys, because the flip side of this is, okay, what's the incentive for these teams that would take on dead money like Fred VanVleet? And I see the chat has pointed out that because he signed this 1+1, they has this implicit no trade clause. I don't think that's like a complete deal breaker. Fred VanVleet can read the market. He's almost certainly going to he'll be paid if he wants to next year when he's coming back from injury. So I don't know if that'll be an issue. But I look at a team like Washington, because there's so many good prospects in next year's draft, and they are so far away that there might be a real tank this year to the bottom. I look at them and say, CJ McCollum makes about the exact same amount of money as Fred VanVleet. Not a guy you necessarily wanted to have to throw some assets towards acquiring when you had Fred VanVleet, but he's a veteran point guard who knows how to play, can score. A name like that, to me, would make sense for them, even if it cost them some of their war chest of assets.
I love that name. I just think that's like almost like kind of like the perfect name to put out there, because look, if you're a guy that's in your late 20s or younger, and you're like that level talent to be on a team like that, those teams aren't giving guys like that up. CJ McCollum has found himself in this situation in Washington. They're not close to winning. They've got a ridiculous number of like top 10 picks on their roster over the last 3 years. Everything is about the future. Everything is about the youth. And then they've got these other guys like sprinkled in there, like CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, and guys like that. Right. So CJ McCollum, I think, still feels like in the right situation, he has a lot to offer. Now, he's not going to play 70, 75 games anymore, probably. But if you can preserve him and keep him fresh for a playoff run, he's got big game playoff experience. And I think he is the kind of guy, a veteran that knows how to run a team or can still score at a high level if he's required to do that if Durant's off the floor. That might be a perfect answer, because he serves no purpose in Washington whatsoever. They would be looking to acquire more picks and just sell out to the youth movement, and let's revisit Washington in 5 years. It's kind of how it feels. CJ McCollum has no place in that organization right now or on that roster. That's a pretty good name.
Yeah. They have their own picks in 28, 20, 30, 31, 32. They have swap rights in 2029, swap rights in 2027 with Brooklyn, an unprotected pick in 2027 from Phoenix, which is extremely valuable in my opinion. So then they have a ton of second round picks. So they have a war chest of things. And I just look at it and say, and fan bases kind of learn this along the way. You get to January and you're right there, but you see your weaknesses and you say, it's not perfect, but man, if we had one more guy we can count on to that level, a starter caliber player, then we're a lock to be as good as anybody in the league. I just don't think you can hold on to those picks. It doesn't matter. Right now, you can win a championship. This team could win a championship this year. They could win it next year. They could win it the year after that. You start thinking about 5, 6, 7 years from now, you get yourself into trouble. And that's just why, in a weird way, they get more interesting in that way, because they are a team now that has to make some tough calls. Last thing I'll say is Fred VanVleet is a leader. I mean, this guy's been a leader at college level, been a leader all of his stops along the way. And I look at that team and think, for all of the talent, they have youth, Şengün, Amen Thompson, Reed Sheppard. They have those guys who maybe aren't ready for that. You have Kevin Durant, who hasn't necessarily been the vocal type of leader, for his teams. I think they're going to miss that part of it too. And that part's hard to replace. That was the guy that everybody kind of knew and looked up to, and it had that sort of perspective on.
I think that's harder to replace than his game, to be honest with you. The leadership component. He's got this very consistent, calm demeanor about him, right? Rarely changes his expression. He's just seen it all. He's not fazed by what's going on. I think that's really important to set the tone for a team that wants to make a two-month playoff run. I think just having that guy out there every night it gives you a lot of stability and confidence as a head coach and the guys around him. So I think that component is much more difficult to replace than even what he is as a player.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Legs, or should we move on to Skinny Zion?
Skinny Zion, man. I've been dying to talk about this.
All right, well, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to get to Skinny Zion from Media Day, as well as a handful of other players that Legs deems interesting for a bounce back year or a new role year. We'll get to that on the other side. First, you know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 exits away. Well, we've all been there. I've been there too. But what I found was that Shady Rays, they've changed the game. They've got sunglasses that are made for real life. They're very good looking, stylish, in some cases athletic. They got ski goggles, polarized, durable, all types of different options for you. But the wild part is if you lose or if you break them, either one, you break them, oh, I just sat on them or whatever happened. Lose them, just your own fault. You don't even need an excuse. Yes, I left him. I left him at the gas station and now I don't have them anymore. Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can wear your sunglasses without fear on hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever it is. Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code AC35 for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. It's important for you to use our code. This is how they judge us. So use it, AC35 for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. It's the best place to find all of your favorite player props. So now you can make the smarter play with new performance trends. We're in between week 1 and week 2 of the NFL. Maybe you want to see who is playing well. What do the numbers say about who had a sneaky grade? This is the time of year that it's the most fun because there's always breakout players that the market hasn't quite caught up with. You want to see if a guy's hitting that over consistently or maybe even flirting with a potential triple-double. Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who's heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, it's not too late to get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back here, segment 2. Make sure you hit that like button if you're following along. Last show of the offseason. Then we enter the preseason, which is not quite the season, but it's one step closer. Some pictures have emerged from New Orleans Pelicans Media Day Legs, and it's my favorite time of year because inevitably there's always going to be players that are a little bit more in shape than we're used to. And this year that award goes to one Zion Williamson. I mean, you've seen this. Do we have the photo, James? He legitimately looks incredible, in my opinion. This one doesn't even do it justice. Man, this one does look almost like the exact same, so maybe it's all lighting, but there are some photos where he looks really, really thin.
Well, no, you can even see in that one. Put that back up again, James, for a second. You can even see in this comparison, just like the thickness in his arms, like from the top of his shoulder down to the elbow. Like, and look, here's the thing, Adam, it's crazy. So we all saw it that first day. It went viral talking about Zion Williamson, right? Like, oh my, this dramatic weight loss. So I turn it on, I check him out. I'm like, it's noticeable. Yeah. I wasn't freaking out about it. I'm like, okay, he definitely lost weight. Now let's find out what the story is here. And the story is that this dude completely changed his conditioning program, his diet, all of these things over the summer. Now he's got like specific like weight clauses and body fat clauses he's got to adhere to. He is saying all the right things about it mattering to him. He said he feels better than he has since he was in high school. That's what he said going into the season. Here's what I'll say, though. Having said all of that, Zion Williamson is listed at, I believe, is he listed at 6'7", 6'8"?
Yeah.
I think he's closer to 6'6". He's still 265 pounds, people. He's 265. What percentile does that put him in the NBA at 265 pounds? That's the 95th percentile would be my guess. Okay. Now here's what's crazy though. I saw some reports today. I don't know if you saw this. They said there's people out there saying he got up to 330.
Wow.
At different times over the last few years with all of the time he missed, and they'd show him on the sideline and he did look bigger when he's wearing clothing and stuff. You're like, man, Zion's gained some weight. 330 though, because like they said his rookie year when he was drafted, he was 285. He's now 265. So you go, okay, 20 pounds in 6 years, basically. Okay, that's nothing crazy. But when you go, wait a second, this guy was like maybe up to 330 2 years ago, and now he's down to 265. That is pretty dramatic. I think overall, I'm going by what this guy is saying and the way that he feels and attributing a complete change in his approach to the offseason. And if that's the case, this could be an amazing thing we're about to watch, because I look, people were like, oh, is he going to be, did he lose too much weight? What are you talking about? The guy's still 265 and he's still incredibly powerful and explosive. And you're going to see all of that stuff now. But I think what this does, if he can maintain this, I just think it gives him a better chance to stay on the court for the duration of the season, because 280, 285, 290, 300, whatever you want to say, with that kind of a vertical, all of that weight coming down and pounding on the ground, like it just takes a toll in your body. Body's not meant from a biomechanical standpoint to endure that. 265, that's more doable. So I'm really hoping that this is the real deal. He's committed to it. He stays like this. And as a result, he stays on the court, man, because it's better for the league when Zion Williamson is playing.
How does this affect his, I mean, if we're going to, again, he looks legitimately like a different body than we've seen since his Duke days. How do you think it affects him? Because part of this is that he's so powerful as a jumper, and he still looks big. Like you said, 265. It's not like he's a skinny guy, but his power was part of it. But his quickness is, to me, part of his underrated aspects. I mean, he's one of the toughest covers in the NBA because his first step around guys is so fast, and then he's explosive. Presumably, he's going to be even more so this year. So how do you see his game lose maybe a little power, but gain a little bit of speed?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think for me, it was always the combination of three things. The raw power, which also is like / explosive ability, right? Those are tied together. The quickness factor, which is a big deal for him. But then for me, I've always thought neither one of those things would matter that much, because it's a league full of the best athletes in the world. If he didn't have this incredible touch on his finishing ability, it's one thing, the number of dunks he gets and all that. Look at the number of shots he makes and takes in the course of a game with these weird angles, with all this English he puts on the ball, these high floaters that kiss off the glass. And it belies a guy this big. It doesn't make sense that those two things go together. And to me, it's always what has been the final difference maker for Zion Williamson. The fact that he can make those shots, and it doesn't have to all be power basketball. And he can have games where he doesn't make a jump shot. He gets his 3-4 dunks, but he still gets 25 points because he has 5 or 6 really tough finishes with finesse over the top of guys, right? That to me has always been what's special about him. A guy this big, moving this quickly with this kind of power, and then at the end of it puts this unbelievably soft arcing shot that kisses off the glass over a shot blocker. That to me is what separates him. And if he's a little quicker to get from point A to point B now, maybe not quite as like big of a load to guard because of he's lost some weight. So what? He's still got the quickness and that touch. That's not going anywhere. And if it means he stays on the court more minutes, more games throughout the season, this has been a big win. Let's just see what happens and how this all plays out. And I just pray we get a year in which Zion Williamson is available for like 75 to 80 games, man, and just see what this guy's capable of. Obviously, the Pelicans are a different team now than when he got there, but I want to see what this guy's capable of at this weight, looking the way he does and maintaining it.
I still don't buy their team wholly, but because now you see something like this and you go, okay, well, are they a little better than we think? I still think that their roster is pretty fragmented, but seeing Zion like this, the league is better with him. He's one of those guys that the league is more entertaining when he's on TV because he's one of the most entertaining guys, not just the highlights, but to your point, all the stuff that's in between the highlights is also really exciting. His touch and his explosiveness off the dribble. But I asked you some other guys. So he's a bounce back year candidate, played 30 games last year. He's a bounce back a guy. Who are some other guys who are either in a new role and you're intrigued because of that new role, or need a bounce back because they had a down year or an injury year last year?
Let me take two right off the top because I want to do this quickly, okay? Because these are obvious. Let's just say Joel Embiid, Paul George.
Yeah.
So here's what's crazy to me. This is how far we've gotten away from like believing that they're going to put it together and stay healthy. Think about the top of the Eastern Conference, okay, and what it looks like right now with Tatum out and Halliburton out, and you're just kind of wondering, okay, you got the Cavs and the Knicks. We're not sure about the Bucks, Pistons, and Magic. Look, they're on the rise, but like still, there's an opportunity there. Then you got the Sixers with Maxey, Embiid, and Paul George, and they're all healthy right now. So don't you think they should automatically be thrust toward the top of the Eastern Conference in terms of expectations? But no one is talking about them, and the reason is because it almost defies logic to think that they're going to be healthy. Like that's where we're at. But right now, as we sit here, Adam, they are. So I just want to mention those two guys right away. Cause to me, that's obviously those are two guys that if they are healthy, it's a massive story in the league because the Sixers are going to be a legitimate threat in the top of the Eastern Conference. Whether it happens or not, who knows? We already talked about Zion. I got a few others that are kind of interesting to me. I think
hold on 1 second before you get to them, because I think Embiid deserves another comment here. He too looks very thin, in a good way, a healthy thin. And I think to your point about, whenever you miss and he's as injury prone or plagued as he has been, you just don't want to count your chickens before they hatch or get too far ahead of yourself. But I do think it's meaningful that he appears to have said, this is probably the best way for me to stay healthy is to lose weight. His size, his strength was one of his assets, but he's really slimmed down. And I think that to me, he was on my list. I'm very intrigued to see what he looks like to start the year and what kind of year he has, because I cast him off and I'm like opening the door for, hey, maybe he has an actual season this year.
I think, and I think the main reason that you and I sound like we're very much in lockstep with how we're viewing this. I think the main reason that we're even opening that door is because of what I just said about Boston and Indiana and what they're missing. And the Cavs with a new coach, right? Cavs made a coaching change. I mean, I'm sorry, not the Cavs. The Knicks made a coaching change. Okay, that's got to gel. That's got to work. And I believe in Mike Brown, and I think it will. So do you expect them to be there? Look, the Cavs are going to win a ton of games. They've got the same team back. They're going to win a ton of games, but they've got some playoff issues, and they've got to answer it. There's ridiculous amount of expectation now on them this year with the opening at the top of the East. The Bucks, they've made some changes. They don't have Lillard anymore. They lost Brook Lopez. They lost some other vets that are part of that team. Let's see. And then you got the Magic and the Pistons. So to me, the reason the door's open for Philly, that we still are holding out hope. And like I say, the door's open. We're like, everybody's at the party, right? And you and I are standing at the back and we're holding the door open because we just saw the Sixers car pull up. And we're like, we're about to close the doors and lock it for this party. And we're like, oh, you know what? We should probably let these guys in. They look like they came. They're dressed for the party appropriately. They pulled up a little bit late. But all right, we should probably let them in. And that's kind of how we feel about them. Yes, I guess we're going to include them. And if it hits, it hits. They've got to prove a lot. And both of those guys just got to stay on the court. And you have a chance in the East this year, I think, if they can. So we'll see.
We'll see. All right, who else is on your list here?
All right. So I'm going to start with this guy. How about and I don't know if he's going to make that much of a difference. I don't love their team necessarily, but this player's potential and talent are so tantalizing. And he's, again, another guy that's had a very difficult time staying on the court. But how about Brandon Ingram in Toronto?
Okay.
And what he could
one.
do for a team, Adam, that lacks exactly what he brings.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy is an answer with his length and mid-range ability, 6'11", and the lean back on his shot. He can get it off over anybody. This is an elite scoring player in this league. Again, dealt with massive injuries. He's healthy, ready to go. I just talked with Darko Stojakovic out in Chicago at the coaches' meetings. He was so effusive in his praise of what he's seeing and what he's going to mean for their team and some of the offensive challenges that they had a year ago. So I'm going to go with Brandon Ingram as a guy that I'm looking at and seeing what kind of a difference can he make in Toronto playing alongside Scotty Barnes. They had, of course, they brought in RJ Barrett a year ago quickly.
Right.
Like those guys now with a full year there And then you still have Scotty Barnes there. And now let's see what a difference maker having a guy that's capable of going for 20 to 30 every single night means to the Raptors.
We all have our thing that we just don't buy. And I see people in the chat, Zion hasn't been healthy for his whole career. You guys are buying him. Like, how many times can you be fooled? Like, that's fair. I mean, honestly, it's fair. I'm not even saying I'm buying him. I'm more hopeful for
that's
it.
What I'm, well, first of all, that's what, hold on, pump the brakes. Who said we're buying him? Did I say I'm buying stock in Zion Williamson?
Don't worry.
I mean, nobody said we're buying him. All we said was, this is a good thing. And hopefully he can pull it off. That's all we said.
Exciting.
I'm not ready to slide my chips to the middle of the table on this.
Lake said they're going to win the championship this year. He's going to be an MVP. That's
what
Lake said.
You're playing one of my games. You're doing one of my. Okay, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing there.
No, but some people, it's injuries. You're just never going to buy a guy to stay healthy or in shape. It's that. For me, it's like approach. And Brandon Ingram has always been a guy to me that I just haven't loved his approach to the game, both as a leader and the guy who, if you're a great player, you carry responsibility. You get all the accolades, but you get the responsibility of certain things. And the intensity, he's just not a guy that I ever feel like is playing with the full intensity that is required of his status. So to me, that's the one. So I love that Darko had great things to say, and there's good intel behind the scenes, and there's some momentum. But that one is the one to me where I go, I won't believe any player has changed their approach until they show it.
That's fair. That's fair. And I'm not sitting here saying, hey man, book it. Yeah. Brandon Ingram this year. What I'm saying is this guy is loaded with talent. He's in a brand new environment. And for the first time, like he has said even himself, like he's like ready to go physically from the get-go on a team that needs it. So we'll see. I got two other guards I want to point out in the East that are kind of, to me, young guys. Injuries hurt them last year, back in the mix on teams that are super interesting. Jaden Ivey and Jalen Suggs. Both of those guys, right? Ivey, remember this, I believe Ivey was their second leading scorer 2 years ago, right? He basically, maybe it was last year until he got hurt. Think about that. On a Pistons team that we're all super excited about and the steps they took a year ago and where they're going to be this year. And then, of course, what the Magic did with, they got the 2-star forwards, and now you get Desmond Bane, and now you got Suggs to go alongside Bane. Man, that's a really interesting starting five. So I want to see what both of those guards do after having their seasons disrupted by injury on teams that are emerging in the East.
Suggs, to me, I'm such a Suggs believer that I would say for him, I almost feel like it's a lock. Paolo Banchero is another guy that, to me, I want to see the efficiency leap. That's been the thing for him. I want to see him be able to be more effective in all of his talents. But I think that he had excuses. The team was not, built in a way I loved. Now it is. And I think with Suggs, the same thing. Like, to me, Bane's a great running mate for him, and I think he's going to have a great year. Jaden Ivey is the interesting one because we didn't get as good enough a look at him when the team turned the corner last year. And that's why I think he's a perfect one. What is it about his game you like? Because he can score, he can shoot. What is it you want to see from him?
Well, I think he's got incredible end-to-end speed. So he's a guy that thrives when they're playing fast in transition. He's also incredibly tough. He is a guy that from all accounts, incredibly hard worker. He's the guy that's so serious about becoming the best version of himself as an NBA player because of his commitment to it. I just think he brings a maturity level for a young player to their team that they need to help take that next leap. Man, I'm a big fan of his. I was really devastated to see him go down last year. You're putting him back into the mix of a team that was one of the best stories in the league, if not the best team story in the league a year ago, with the year they had before that when they lost them was 30 games in a row. They come back last year. They give the Knicks everything they can handle in that first-round playoff series. Super excited for their team in general, but now you add a guy like that to the mix at his age with his athletic ability, explosive ability. Can't wait to see him.
Do you have more? I have a couple more.
I have two more.
You don't. Okay, let's hear them.
I do. I have two more. They're veteran guards, and they're different situations, but I'm interested for both guys. One, Marcus Smart.
Ooh,
I want to see, look, he's only 31, and he's had a lot of injuries too, but you talk about a team that I think last year lacked mental toughness and physical toughness. It was the Lakers. I think Marcus Smart can be a difference maker there. And then Bradley Beal is an interesting one for me. He is. I know you were going to snicker at that. I knew you were going to snicker at that. But look, here's the thing. Do you agree that the Clippers are a really interesting team?
Interesting in ways like both positive and negative, but yes, they're always interesting with that much talent and that much depth.
Yeah, and so I think for Bradley Beal, he put up big numbers in Washington. No one really paid attention or cared, right? And people started to wonder, man, is this guy just going to put up numbers on a bad team his whole career? Is he ever going to go somewhere and try to win? You know what? He did that. He forced his way out after getting beat over the head. Like, what are you doing staying in Washington all these years? Goes to Phoenix. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. Complete disappointment with everything that went on with those three guys paired together. Now Durant's gone. It's Booker's team. And now Bradley Beal finds himself with the Clippers in a situation where, look, and he doesn't have to go get 25 every night, but can he be a good enough replacement for Norman Powell? Like in the year that Norman Powell had, can he be finally a guy that's on a team that wins 50 games, that's relevant in the West, and it's mattering a lot more because you're looking at him in a positive way, even though his numbers might not be as good. So I'm interested to see if he can pull that off.
I think I'm a little less interested in Beal, but I probably will get interested. The Clippers have burned me too many times. I can't get interested about them. Last year was the final straw. I had to move off of ever buying Clippers stock. I think I'm banned on the stock exchange from buying any stock in the Clippers. Marcus Smart one I think is an interesting one for sure. How much does he have left in the tank? It is the time of year where I start talking myself into the Lakers a little bit, not fully, but a little bit, and he's part of it.
Well, wait a second. I got to stop you for a second. So you're saying you're poo-pooing the Clippers a year ago. Did they not play the Denver Nuggets to a 7-game series? And did Kawhi Leonard not finish the year healthy? I mean, for me, to me, I look at the Clippers. I don't look at their year a year ago as saying, oh, wow, there they go again. I had higher expectations for them. They actually, to me, overachieved last year based on my expectations going in because I never thought I'd see Kawhi Leonard again.
They overachieved and got bounced in the first round. That's why I say, and I don't think the Nuggets were great last year. So to me, it's a little bit of, I just can't go too far. I'm going to give you my two names. Both of them are veteran players as well. I'm interested in Devin Booker's year because 28 is kind of the apex of your prime. And it's very rare that you arrive at 28 years old, same team, apex of your prime, and you've already gone through the good years. They had the championship run or the run to the finals. They had the Durant era. And now he's back to being the face of the franchise and the main guy. And I'm just curious. I think that he was on his way to being a good leader and team player and all this stuff. You get Kevin Durant, completely changes the dynamic, in the locker room, in the organization, all that. Now he's gone and he steps back into that role. So I don't have high hopes for the Suns as a team, but I am curious what Booker looks like. Does he look like a leader now and ready to be the face? And this is year one of a very deliberate rebuild. Or does it feel like kind of a lost at sea year for that organization? If it is a lost at sea, if he's not returning to the leader and face of that team, I don't know what their outlook is for the rest of his prime. Then you start to look at it and say, where are they going? Are they 3 years away from doing anything? Because his time is now.
Only thing I will disagree a little bit, I think I will extend the quote apex of a guy's prime a few years. I think it's actually like 25 to 31. I think he's right in that. So I think he's got another 2 or 3 years where he can still be the absolute best version of himself. And that version, pretty damn good. I mean, you think about it as their clear primary best offensive player, that team was a team that did get to the NBA Finals. And Devin Booker, I think, when he can just go into the mode of just go be a raw attacking scorer, his playmaking will come organically, but just go get 30 every night. I think Devin Booker is on that level, but I don't know how good their team is going to be. The West is just so loaded. So I don't know they're going to win enough games where he's really, a primary talking point for us on the shows we're going to be doing. Cause I don't think the Phoenix Suns are going to be in that category because the West is so good. But I do think Devin Booker is going to have a great year. And I think he is, more than capable of pulling this transition off back to that guy, as opposed to sharing the wealth with 2 other star players because it didn't work out. They've gone back to this formula. Nobody loves their team going into the season, But I have no doubt in my mind Devin Booker's going to have a hell of a year.
The last guy, and this one I think is a big one, is De'Aaron Fox. Because last year, he averaged under 20 points a game when he got traded to San Antonio. Now, there was a lot of circumstances there. One of them was that they only played 5 games with Victor Wembanyama. He signs a big new deal. They're committed to him. He shot poorly, by the way, from 3 when he got to San Antonio as well. And to me, this is a big one because San Antonio is they're like the flex team in the West. I don't know if they're going to rise and be super competitive, and Victor plays a bunch, and they got young guys, and Fox fits in. He's not a 20-point per game guy. He's a 25, 26-point per game guy. And they're one of these teams that is the disruptor in the Western Conference pecking order. Or if what they have been the last couple of years, which is, they're intriguing, they can get you on any night, but they're not a threat. De'Aaron Fox, to me, is the inflection point. I like a lot of their young pieces, but he has to be a great player for them to be that first version, the spoiler, the team that you look up and say, oh my God, they're a 5 seed. I didn't realize they're a 5 seed in January. So De'Aaron Fox to me is right there in the middle of this discussion.
I think it's a good name. I'm a little bit more skeptical that that's going to be the case. Here's one thing about the Spurs and where they're at now with this Victor Wembanyama development. De'Aaron Fox as a ball screen operator with Victor Wembanyama, I don't think De'Aaron Fox is a natural creator for other people. He's a scorer. He's a great mid-range pull-up shooter. He's really fast end-to-end, but he comes off screens looking to score. And I'm curious how that's going to mesh with Wembanyama and clearly being the guy they want to run everything through. So I need to see what that looks like. There's no doubt the guy is massively talented, and he didn't have a lot of time last year once he got there, and he didn't have much time at all with Wembanyama because Wembanyama went down. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like as well. And are the Spurs, because of Wembanyama's unique skill set and impact on the game, are they going to be more relevant quickly in the West and grab our attention in that first month of the season? I think that's going to be interesting to me to see if that happens. And if it is, how is that pairing responsible for that? I want to watch how they play together. So to me, that's very much, an incomplete grade because I don't know what that's going to look like. I need to see more time with that, but I know De'Aaron Fox, I'm not thinking this is a guy that's going to be a perfect mesh with Victor Wembanyama. I need to see that together more.
We got the Spurs. This maybe is a prompt for the chat and for people to leave comments below, because the Spurs are that team that I'm not picking them to be the 5 seed. I'm saying I think that they're a team that with Victor Wembanyama, things can hit. And if they hit this year, then they become a disruptor. So I'm kind of curious. So let me know in the comments, do you buy that San Antonio has that disruptor? Every year there's a surprise team that's a little bit higher in the standings than you expected. Is this the year it's the Spurs or not quite yet? All right, we have a couple super chats. James, what do we have? Psycho Blue, he says, yesterday I tried to go to the gym in my Hakeem uni. A wasp jumped on it, refused to let go even after I took it off and sprayed it. That's all the omen I need to bet on Houston being the 11th seed. There you go. Are you a believer in omens?
Man, oh man, that's a serious superstition you got there because you saw a wasp on a jersey. That's trying to tell you something, man. No, I don't buy into any of that stuff, man. Are you healthy or do you have enough talent? Period. That's all that really matters.
You have superstitions though as a shooter, I'm sure. Didn't you talk about not clipping nails or something like that? Didn't you have something you would refuse to do?
No, talking about. No. I mean, no, the normal stuff. Obviously, always leaving the court on a make, but I had to make a certain number of threes from each spot on the court before in my pregame.
That's just work, yeah.
Warm ups. Yeah. That's just standard stuff. No, I was never super weird about any of that kind of stuff at all.
You might not admit it if you were. You might have had something in there where you're not sharing. All right, what else we got? VDV says, will you guys talk about Kuminga Gate? What a saga. We've talked about it quite a bit. I don't have a ton to add to it, but
there's nothing's really changed. So we'll obviously that's going to be something we'll be jumping on however that plays out. Yeah, that's got to change. Yeah. Something's got to give, but kind of got tired a little bit myself. And we haven't done a lot of shows, but I just got tired of talking about him.
Man.
I did. And I'm a Kuminga guy. I think I'm higher on Kuminga than a lot of people. I was really impressed with what he did last year, man. They shelved him. He was collecting dust. And then when they needed him in that series against Minnesota, he played great to close out that series. Even though they couldn't beat them, they weren't good enough without Curry. For him to sit there and be taken out of the rotation and answer the way that he did with a 30-point game against Minnesota, to me, I was impressed with his maturity level, his talent's there. I'm just tired of talking about him because it's like this is all we've talked about for the last 2 years is Jonathan Kuminga. Where's he going to go? And guess what? He's still in Golden State.
Yeah, this is exactly how I feel. I love that you said that. You can hit that outro music, but that people ask me that sometimes. What do you think about Kuminga? I say, man, I'm too tired to think about Kuminga. I'm over it. I don't think about him. Let me know when something happens with it. Everybody, what a great show, man. This was a nice chance to catch up on some big topics. The Rockets, obviously, Skinny Zion, and some of these bounce back guys. Next week, I mean, some media days have happened, but next week, every team will start their training camp, and that means there's plenty of storylines for us to kind of return, not to midseason form, but to preseason form. Legs and I coming in best shape of our lives. We appreciate having you guys here. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys next time.
All silly like the mayor.